가사를 이야기 다 심지 조조의 명령 장 다 나와다 로다 decade 너로 장 삼다네 엔다 계과지 다 장주 생기 진요 니신도치 예배이나 장주 손로 매배 되버치 다 생기 띵네 엔다 즉 장주 심사디 삼로스타인 전에 직সম로 배 떠나게 되어로 당연 더 그지 예배이나 다 심디니 지금 땡기 종류야 계야 지기나 아니 배요래 다다 땡기 종류 계야 지기야래 다 라마 예배체제 아니 라마 종류야 다 되게 개비디디 심기 유디디 세트베 타네 아니 라마 종류야 심기베이나 야직 소소 심리야 그게 어다 되등에 심기 쉬베인다 삼배 양식 파규래야로 전시 파규래야로 판도야래 저 진짜 인도선다 들대 라면 중에 애는 심기야디 인다
We talked about it yesterday, and then we also talked about generating bodhicitta and doing the ceremony for it today. Of course, cultivation of bodhicitta takes time, and so what you need to do is think over and over the benefits of bodhicitta and the reasons to cultivate it and all this, and then you should, of course, it always takes time to cultivate bodhicitta, to develop it within yourself. It may take, of course, it has to be developed through days' efforts that you put, through days, months, and years, and then after having worked hard, then when you actually feel as some kind of have the feeling of bodhicitta, for bodhicitta rather close to you, then in other words, when you are on the onset, the bodhicitta is starts to feel close, then you should take part in this kind of ceremony for generating bodhicitta. It can be done in front of statues, images of the Buddha, or it can be done with lamas. But when you do it with lamas, it helps you to feel that you have a witness for you, and it helps to be heedful about keeping the bodhicitta for yourself, to keep up with it. So first of all, we will do generation of bodhicitta by reciting the praise, the verse which says, "I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha." Whatever merit I collect, whatever collections I create through generosity and so forth, may they become cause for me to become a Buddha, to benefit all sentient beings. So, when you say this verse, the first two lines show taking refuge. And so, with regard to taking refuge, you are not taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha so that you would have a higher rebirth, nor are you taking refuge to reach mere nirvana, to become just an arhat, but you are taking refuge until you become enlightened, a Buddha.
다그 진소집에 처남기 롤라편서 사진으로 사디기 다 심기를 사디 더 금들 멤버 심기야디 직기 참로 멤버 심기야인다 댓글을슬람나 아니 다기 다 대대비 청주 토야 그 최도 아니 진버 당원 즉 최중송 서버 공부로 서버 된적이 지 단 너는 랑게 배 겨와 칸 사셔 디드 참말로 아니 산지지 고방 토야 아니 줄줄어 쇼스 어다 간다 지 그게 깁시세 에레 산지지 고방 대 랑게 있는 것도 저기 있어 와 다 산지 최긴도 터도디 산지가 살아요 아래 가서 올때 산지 파과 산지체 긴두체 밀로베 긴두 차디어래 남주 숨도 체에 숨도 체 연주 로베 긴두체 다 안데데 가서 담배 돈도 좋아해 점점 산지 야지 투부 취기 구시지 소전대 터도 칠 수는 시전이 밀로베 긴두 차디어래 디 투기기 최디 다 최근조 터도도 차디어래 그래서 내가 이제잖아 간다베 터두기 얘는 산제 최 긴두스는 산제랑 살려도가 어다 랑게다 딩원도 저기 인사버지 저다 딩원도 제가 거버디에 달라 펜시 슬라베인데 얘는 난게 태도게 sem장 타다라 펜버두야 그 최도 얘는 나랑 얘는 산제 최 타르투게 산제 최 긴두스부터 봐 가서다 대대로다 꼬바 말한 게 있는 것도 저기 독신의 셈기버인다. 단 두번이 된 셈사들에서 달라 펜지스 상제로 쇼스로도 샹디되니 두배창 장주되니까 두버티 게임.
So, with regard to this verse of taking refuge in bodhicitta, the next two lines which says, by the accumulations I create through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. So here, what you are saying is whatever merit you gain through that, or you create through the practices of generosity, ethics, moral ethics, and patience and so forth, the Bodhisattva practices, may they become a cause for you to become a Buddha, to benefit all sentient beings. And so here, when you take refuge in the three jewels, of course, usually when you talk about the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the Sangha is referred to as those on the path, the trainee level, the Arya Bodhisattvas and so forth. But Dharma being the qualities that they have developed and the Buddhas have developed. But in this case, the ultimate refuge of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha is actually embodied in the Buddhas. When you become a Buddha, then you have reached the ultimate goal of enlightenment, and you have the ultimate Dharma, and you also are the ultimate Sangha. So in this way, you aspire to reach that goal of the ultimate Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, where these three are together, combined in one person, and for the benefit of all sentient beings. So those who are on your chair, just be seated on your chair, but those on the floor, please kneel on your right knee. So please repeat these lines. So I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulations I create through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. To the Buddha, the Dharma, and Supreme Assembly, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. By the accumulations I create through generosity and so forth, may I become Buddha to benefit all beings. And so at the end of this third repetition, when you say, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings, in your heart for heart, you should make this pledge that you will, the prayer that you, may you be able to keep this bodhicitta that you have generated. And of course, if possible, you should also think of not causing any decline to this bodhicitta that you are now generating here through this ritual ceremony. So aspiring bodhicitta to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. By the accumulations I create through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Please sit down. So this is, with this you have done the generation of aspiring bodhicitta. So if we stopped in the third chapter, so with these two verses, you are, according to Shantideva's text, you are generating the aspiring bodhicitta as well as taking the bodhisattva vows. The verse starts with just as the previous two gathas, and then also the next verse, verse number 23 and 24. So actually for Buddhist monks, Gelongs, bhikshus, they should take lunch at 12 o'clock. But today, because of this special ceremony that we can take exception here from the Vinaya rule. For example, at this time, although it's almost 12 now here in India, in Europe, the time would be around 9 o'clock. So let's think, the Gelongs, let's think that we are in Europe right now and think that it's 9 o'clock. So if you are feeling hungry, then you should swallow saliva more. Or else you can think about taking concentration food. Perhaps it will help to overcome your hunger. It'll make you feel filled.
Oh yeah.
So we may finish around 12:30 for lunch.
청주 발도 다는 겹수 치사게 다 청주 사야지 가서 러는 신기 가서 그렇게 견지직 디게 봐 년부기에 관에 봐 창신 타과 그래서 다디 창신 타과 용야디 그들에서는 가서를 무시 럽지 러야래 심정신 요에서래 사실 없어. 전에다 유라면 알이야 상계 최 인든 감 청주 yuande chile sheni tenzen dun sung yore. Dawa digi sanje che gindu sayadi tagi anda sanje che so shona la jingbo dan ju sheni dindigi da sanje kaso uri bigi sanje ju gobande daga ngondu cha sheni da zo 소수 톱절 규베 군조수부 달래야 믹체 다디 제절로 접수로 와서 말이 다 안다데 그림 귤라면 안에 막 그림 듄시에니 연배 그 전세 듄시에니 그림 디만 샤요인데 상계 최근들이 규절샤 그래서 왔다 로직나 중심에 상계 대송샵에 최다 대다 가서 대최 숭니 아니 코로나들로 써봐 너나 이니 안데 대빈주 주든 여대봤다 대다 그 천배 좀 된데 그 전자 디디 아니 상계 숭을 롭존체 아니 상계 그 숭이야 냠린 나니 라기 줄이야 최근조 줄이게 그다 다 망셔디 택심 창주서 버스다래 네 인도산에 택신기 최근조 줄이게 택신기 최근조 줄이 깨봤다 뒤냠도 란균이지 가서 택신기 에네 가서 그게 택신기 긴데 장습하고 다 유주고야래 저자와 디디 다 로규나라 봐 중심배 상계 최 긴류데 셴다 달려야 다 교수식인스 달려 교수치하게 거든디 랑기 줄을 예배 캄 랑신주 회사 사시도가 다 캄스야디 심지 춘이의 시에요. 저 가서다 감 찍디 다내참 가시 시도 왔다. 내가 심지 춘이의 상무시다. 심지 춘이 되다 산 나란주 줄을 예배 심지 춘이 되다 산계의 투규기 심지 투기 춘이 니부터라 차라게 와 매버래. 랑신지 땅잠지기 이 직벌에 내 인도선의 최기 인수 로직 와스 유라면 나는 티신이 매치당 신 송샤 되려죠.
So, with regard to the verse, the line which says, "Until may I become a Buddha, until in order to benefit all sentient beings," what you are saying is that. May I reach enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings. And so here, as I explained yesterday, the term for enlightenment, Changchup, has two syllables in Tibetan. So the meaning is to purify all the negativities, overcoming and eliminating all the negativities and defilements, and then having the full knowledge or complete knowledge of everything. And therefore, the possibility to reach that kind of a result is, as I explained yesterday, on the one hand, is because of the very nature of the mind being clear light or luminosity and luminous, and therefore, with regard to this, now in the in Maitreya's Mahayana Uttara Tantra, he goes through this. He writes the text within the rubric of the seven, what are known as the seven Vajras, and which are the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, then the Buddha nature, and then enlightenment and enlightened qualities and enlightened activities. And so the sequence that is given here is with regard to the first three, the objects of refuge, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, of course, is from the point of view of the causal refuges, whereas what we had done earlier with regard in relation to the cultivating bodhicitta, generating bodhicitta, aspiring bodhicitta through the ceremony, ritual ceremony, was within the understanding that the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are within one person who is fully enlightened, a Buddha, and which is taking the resultant refuge as our focus. And whereas now here in in relation to the Mahayana Uttara Tantra, when it gives the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the Buddha is the one who has given us the teachings. So these are causal refuges, meaning that the Buddha is the one who gave us a teaching, and then his Dharma meaning that those who have become Arya beings, especially the Bodhisattva Arya beings, who have this Dharma within them, the true realization and the true cessation within them, and then you have those who qualify with these dharmas as the sangha, and so you have from this you have the causal refuges of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha in this way. And so, in the case of, for example, the Nalanda masters, whom we have visualized earlier, and other followers, Mahayana followers of the Buddha, and most of them, of course, were Mahayana practitioners and Mahayana Sanghas, and then within them they have developed the Mahayana Dharma. The true cessation, true path of the Mahayana path, and so in these you are taking refuge, or you have taken refuge, and the purpose of taking refuge in the Mahayana Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, the three jewels of Mahayana, is in order to fully realize the suchness that is within ourselves, in order to fully become an enlightened. And the reason why we can see the enlightenment is possible is if you think along the line that the suchness or the empty nature of the mind of us and the empty nature of the mind of the Buddhas are of same nature. There's no difference in terms of being empty. In that case, they are of same identity.
벽에 데이트 타니르다. 데데나. 지금 그 자세 고급을 좀 야쇼. 자. 최종 도와줄 대신 거 그래. 벽에 그들 고대로. 신 작설 전화. 다도 세. 다데네 아도 디저래. 다디 주인들 봐. 주인 여여 말이스. 취인서도 딱 봐봐. 다 취인기 심정신이 또 인상 아니 심딩이 좀 세롱처리야. 심딩이 좀 세롱이보다 가르스로나 심딩이 좀디 심기 취니를 치료로 또 보진주잖아. 아니 심기 취니 지도하신도 또 인주잖아. 심기 취니를 치료로 또 벌어디 매차로. 자,这里就是呢，什么大下的确定因素大下去，实际上个甚至去年了，季节劳动到过落地呢，甚至去年七到线到过落地个，那是了千年，呢，甚至去年了，季节劳动到过落地，噶就是呢，甚至确定因素大把些是要，告诉我，但是呢。三界个赛故松土原点线呢，第一的对这个圈吧，三界个原点蒙古人对不起人的，因为对这个人性个三界个赛圈蒙古多，第一的对这因上就是讲了的呢，结果了吧，是吧？所以这印度上呢，这部三界个故松土。양나 아니 가서 그게 다리 된저 구숭 투숭부디 뒤제 인도산에 tin 줍지 다 두지 고르와 다 졸려야 녀링이 두지 다 세지세야 안다 돈도 따와서 버서 저게 제일 고르다 다 거래 녀링이 두시 다 상식당 거 지리셔발이야 통마다 타면 매세 가래슬럼나 셰바 세리 잠그 등이기 셰바디 귤에니 기베 셰바 귤로야지 아주 통구도 와 용구도 와 귤기 여바디기 가르다 왔다 말씀나 귤로 떼버디 땡겨 와 자상가 귤에 등이기 최지이나 유진지 임버시다 귤로 떼는 중앙이 뭐지 셰도야 다 드리르산의 셰버디에 그 줄을 용한디 세버봐. 다 줄때려야 현지시진 요아래 변한 거는 저 레버도 차셔나 미 레버디 미 셰베 현지신 식도 와. 일류 현지신 식도 와. 레지다 거래 넬린치 등에디 셰버 거라도 릭 나와진 거라. 넬린스르디 두디 데부티 모르 줄내지 거라. 자자가면 레버디 데 펜부 숙진으로 숙진지기 애니 세점 지 릭점 뇽점 그 모르 줄토야 믿어가. 배나 숙진기 쉬지면이나 뒤녀링 두디 셰베 제도 말과. 야 거를 릭투버 지 숙진식도 와. 자 드리 인도산에 딕당을 시루로 다고 가설로다 춘이고 살더다. 자 드리 인도산에 다고 셰베지기 그 녀링이 두들 이집이 셰베지 구여버 인도산에 아니 계시 셈로 토마시 샤나 셰버로 토마시 샤나 셈 기지 당부디 아니 랑도 릭미트베 줄이게 봐. 되고. 다 디션에는 하장 태도도 봐. 자 디리 인도산에 다 셈로 링저 토마 요마리 시요. 다가는 신기 셈 내발라 명점 릭점디 지명오로 요마리 봐. 저서 세점 릭점디 지명오 매번 인도산에 델라 객시민도가 랑 내발라 객시민도가. 친절로 걸로이나 로디 윤내알이야 그디 객시 그다음 개진 친지 말로 볼로 지용겨. 다 세점 릭점 tel라 그 독촉 그 개진 김도가. 자 디네 인도산에 셈 그땐 그 쯤어 다야요. 가래서 놓고 그 개진 숙청부요. 세점 릭점 tel라 개진 매번 인도산에 세점 릭점 때 가야기 좀 믿어가. 자 디네 인도산에 산제네 셰바 못은 때야지. 그래서 저라마에 가서 대박하시기 이니 상면이한테 것도 제도 리버 균시 가서 기저 로스무나 시리 리버 균시 셔야되더라. 상시부 담이나 더스 믿어요. 된 고블루기 가서 해야 돼. 리버 죽으면 안 쓰요. 저들이 뭐 인도산에 저들이 인도 삼라 타마에 매자. 그래서 자 다 딘딘데 다 셈디 간에 다 이기 산제지 구숭투숭 주야기 녀링 지고르다. 오미시베 루무도 와. 그러다 셰바라고 디디 루무도 와. 다 셰바 차라체. 다 사운드베 금네 숭샤게 셰바 차라마 체인드잖아요. 다 셰바 낭지 톱숭기 셰바 동바시等이 동바시 써야 됐다. 루브르 취기 동바 동바. 자 샹동 상当时 돼요. 루브르 취기 동바. 다 고래 원이 주에 동하다. 원이 주에 동. 데이터라 루브르 취기 동. 디 샹동 고와지 되기도 봐. 자 드르르 동바들로 동바 탕보, 동바 니버, 동바 숨바, 동바 시버신. 또 동바 시버디 탐제 동바 외세신. 다선 차셔도 돼. 저 산제사는 중에게 로드 돼. 아주 유타다 여대버티. 다다 문주 민도가 루브르베 셰바디 게임도산에 뉴물 현지집에 외세디 박라샤베서 지대도 봐. 다 뉴물 현지집에 외세기 리세다 캡도요. 이내 거라 셰바코라 랑스머럽시고 공문주도 한테 깨요 말. 문주도 한테 대 가서 어떤 것도 좀 박라샤 대도 봐. 저서 왔다 다 뉴물 현지집에 외세 디 땡네 산지기 군주야. 산지기 숭주야. 산지 투주야 돼. 이모 집에 외색 때네. 또 사운드에 겁네. 드시 쉬우쉬우 사고 그러셔. 자, 드리 인도산은 공부를 주기 에네 르메나리아 시 구순 세하게 다녀 자인 거야. 나는 실 랑셔서 구순 줘야지. 에네 람지 구순. 디 구순 생이버서 쓰고 말봐. 이내단 데뷔 구순보다 구순 그 주칭해지다. 구순보다 제수 틈버지기 그 가서 그게 생일지 여댕해지기. 딘데를 공부시에니 아니 시 구순, 람지 구순, 데뷔 구순, 시 구순래 니샤 축지기 원도시게 구순 샤용도. 나다디 규라메 다 규라메 디시닝부스 송샤디 나로라 kusum 주지 년린 사변기 차서야지어래. 어다 디테일 something도. 저다 디디지 여기 인도산에 가라서 줄이야. 심 단동. 애는 심 차라 체 인도산에 심 참여 때문에 kusum 주야게 년린 사변기 차지 랑셔서 여대와. 어다 디가라 다다한테 상계 추 긴두 규격우추도 여대와 디디기다 진럽 죽서도 될 죽이야. 될 죽이야 가르스는 진럽 셰베 식디 된다디 진셰버 시진 다 느버지 다 느버티기 가르치고 있으려면 있나 럽셰버디 규레터 자 근데 인도산에 초승기 시진기 랑기 규 마타와디 애니 규 타고 규려나들라 신럽스기 하래 그래서 소수 시규를 요약하게 해봐 애니 마시면 진럽 쉬스 진럽 타고서 할게 돼요 말해 초승 그 시진디 현지신이래. 뒤또 진로 용서디 소스 셈을 요태인잖아요. 애니 진로 살때 도신 거야. 자, 근데 인도 다당 가란주 심규 주변이기 상황도 요den에 주민이 칭대봐. 근데기가 셈 마타고디 셈 참을 때는 구승주비하게 느버지어 이르잖아요. 애니 심지 대권이 통해 권에 심지 대권이 뭐도 주베 권에 애니 림기 심지 그 참 다이르잖아요. 애니 구승주야게 느버지더디 르베르베야 세체 애니 럼디고 qab려야 성수 로치고 뭐마식 주비도 다 대균야 르드야 치니 애니 데뷔 성수 로치고 용거야 봐 다당 안서 시 내가 신도 저 육매 롱싱부 때문에 샤윤도 뭐지 버 봐. 그 모임이라도 독세 쳐봐도 모임이라도 그래서 나가서 어통디 디간을 내는 거요. 랑당 디간 내기도 와. 그래서 이 인도산에 시 류가 예수 신도 차여가는 사람들이 뭐지 그래도 와. 그래서 디니 람징 올 게 인도산에 람징 내거리야. 아니 런디 구스미 예미지 성수 로치고 지기 구스미 예미지 성수 예미지 레이무도 와. 어다 디균도 신은 산적 살이야. 밀로 송juk 살이야. 아니 가쇼래. 다 간다베 증리가 방바타다로 방인도 자네. 다 딘딘데 성수 로치고디 이 산적세 성수 로치고 쳐야. 저도와 저다 딘디 인도 안다. 산적 추 긴두 감 신의 정을 줬었지. 딘데 감디 주마타다 다베 내걸로 정죽세. 감 정죽. 대대비 정죽고도 제일도 자네. 랑도토베 연대 실제수집에 틀레 신. 어디 최등부디 독 상로스담이나 방주고 싶시도 와야 돼. 지 고소해. 럽스 교다다. 럽스 교. 배시다 지금 실사하고 상무진 럽스 교는다.
And so on the one hand, as I said earlier, the mind, the suchness or the empty nature of the mind of ours and the empty nature of the mind of Buddhas, there is no difference between these two, being the nature of emptiness. And because of the mind being empty, because the mind is empty of intrinsic existence, we can say that the defilements that are within our mind stream can be eliminated and uprooted. So when we talk about elimination or overcoming the defilements, dispelling the defilements, what happens there is as you meditate on the emptiness of your mind, principally, what happens is, and you develop your path, your experience further and further, then what happens actually is that the defilements at some point ceases. And where do the defilements cease is, it ceases into or within this suchness or the reality of the mind itself. And so there you reach called the purified state of the mind. And so when you see that the suchness or the empty nature of the mind and meditate on that, then the defilements actually dissolve or disappear or dissolve into that suchness, and then you are purified of the negativities. And then when we talk about purification here, and attaining, when you purify the negativities, then you develop the qualities, the positive qualities of the Sangha and the Buddhas. And so in the case of the Buddhas, of course there are many of the qualities of the Buddha which are not composite phenomena as such, compounded phenomena or composite phenomena, but then there are many qualities of the Buddhas which are composite phenomena or compounded phenomena, which means that they are dependent on causes and conditions. So the resultant goal of Buddhahood, for example, within the Buddhas, then you have the Buddha's body, speech, and mind are compounded phenomena. And because it's compounded, they are compounded phenomena, they need causes and conditions. So that to attain the resultant Buddhahood, where you have the holy Buddha's body, speech, and mind, and which need causes, and then. Regarding the mind of the Buddha, what happens is we have the very basic nature of the mind is that it is it has the nature of cognizance and cognitive nature and clarity. And even in the case of the Buddha's mind, which has this clarity and awareness nature, and what this shows, and then this the clarity and the clear and aware nature of the mind of the Buddha also changes. And when it goes through changes, moment to moment change, what this shows is that it has come from causes and conditions. And so because of that, in order to reach that state of mind, that mind of a Buddha, of course, you need a consciousness, which is a consciousness. You need a substantial cause, which cannot be a matter, but it must be consciousness. So for consciousness to arise, it must have a substantial cause, which is consciousness, and matter cannot be substantial cause of mind as such. And because consciousness needs this consciousness as its substantial cause. Therefore, if you were to try to see whether the mind or the consciousness that we have now has any beginning or not, of course, if you try to say there is a beginning to the mind, then you would have to say that something which is not a mind or consciousness has actually become a mind and has served as its substantial cause, which means the mind would have a beginning. But then the mind has no substantial cause, which is not a mind has no substantial cause, which is a matter as such, but it must be a consciousness. Therefore, there is no beginning to the mind as such. And the mere clarity and cognitive nature of the mind, of course, has its course. And so there is nothing which can actually put an end to that nature of the mind, the cognitive and clarity nature of the mind at all. There's nothing which can actually serve as an antidote to put an end to this clarity and cognitive nature of the mind. And although the defilements that are on the minds, so what you understand here is the nature of the mind, the clarity and cognitive nature of the mind cannot be put to an end by any antidote, but then the defilements can be completely removed from the mind, and so because they are adventitious, and therefore the consciousness as such has no discontinuity. It does not discontinue. Even when you reach Buddhahood, the mind or the consciousness is still there. And so, although the defilements are gone when you reach there, but then it's not like what the Vaibhashikas say. One school of sub-school of Vaibhashikas say that when you reach called the Arhatship, which is to say the Arhatship without any residue or Nirvana without residue, then the mind discontinued from then on. But this is not the case here. And so with regard to the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha, of course, they have their own substantial causes. Now, when it comes to substantial cause of the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha, of course, it must be there while the Buddhas were sentient beings like us. When we become Buddha, of course, we as sentient beings have our body, speech, and mind. But then the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha is such that they come from not the gross or the coarse body, speech, and mind that we have, but then nor the subtler ones, but the subtlest body, speech, and mind that we have become the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. And so this is called clearly demonstrated in the presentation of the path or experience of in Guhya Samaja Tantra, where it talks about the four empty states. So here, of course, the mind, the basic nature of the mind is that it has cognitive nature, and it is cognitive and it is also luminous. But then there is also the mind is empty of inherent existence as such. But then here, when we talk about the four empties, it's not just that emptiness of inherent existence of the mind, but what the mind is during these four empty states, what is the mind is empty of is adventitious phenomena. And so the adventitious defilements which are on the mind, and so when the mind is totally free from all these, which comes at the end at the fourth empty state, then on the basis of that we explain the Buddhahood is the possibility of Buddhahood. And so the innate clear light mind, or the consciousness, on the basis of that, then the Buddhahood is explained, which you actualize when you go through the dissolution process. Then you actualize these four empties, and at the end of that, the fourth empty state, the very subtle innate clear light or luminous mind manifests, and then on the basis of that, Guhyasamaja, the system, which is marvelous, explains how we can attain the three Buddha bodies, and also on the basis of the possibility of attaining the three the Buddha bodies, then it also makes presentation of the Buddha bodies within the context of with reference to the basis level and the path level as well. Although the three bodies which are explained in the context of the basis and the path are not the actual resultant of the three Buddha bodies, but they are something which have some resemblance to those three Buddha bodies at the resultant state. And so what according to Guhyasamaja Tantra is explained is that we have this basic substance or the potential, which is the substantial or factor, which is like a seed for the three Buddha bodies. And so because of this, then we can say that it is said that the blessings from the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha can work in us. And so when we talk about invoking blessings of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, who are the causal refuges for us, what has to happen is the causal refuges, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, in who are separate from us, who are different from us, like the Buddha, Shakyamuni, and so forth, and they serve as a contributing factor for us to make transformation within ourselves. So in order for this transformation to happen within yourself, through the blessings, what has to happen, what you must have is the basic potential, the seed for the Buddha bodies, and so that the blessings can work within us. So in this way, we have the seed transformation within us, and this is kind of helped by the blessings of the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And so, with this subtlest mind, what happens is when you train your mind on the path, you see the very subtle with the very subtle mind, the innate clear light mind. Then you see the suchness of your own mind, and then through that realization, then you gradually purify the negativities and defilements that are within your mind, and this in turn the very subtle mind manifests called further and further, and then you reach the total manifestation of the full potential of the subtle innate clear light mind, and you become a Buddha. And so the subtlest body, speech, and mind that are within us develop further and further, and then you, on the path level, on the trainee level, you have the state where your body, speech, and mind are sort of one taste, and at the trainee level, one taste, and then when you push further in your path, finally you become a Buddha, where the body, speech, and mind are all fully of one taste. And so here, what His Holiness was saying was that through the blessings of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, in whom we take refuge, the causal refuges, then having received the blessings in our mind stream, that because of having this Buddha nature that is within ourselves, then we develop the path and reach Buddhahood, enlightenment. And then when you reach there, you have the qualities, Buddha qualities, and you act in engage in the Buddha activities.
다잖아. 다와 상하가 취해야 돼. 다와 semchara yawachen. 데 돌람다 nga gyudongome kudulu sungya mare. 다디 nga lame kudulu sungya re. 무식하지 않으셔야 돼. 지 산지지 고바 써야 돼. 아니 구시더니 산지지 고바 써야 돼다 또 사무스탄인데 디간이야 토이고도 와. 저들이 인도산에 다 대대비다 상하 도시 대비에 다 될래야 아니 다 응원주님마 지 다 근데 변주 주등兄弟的 선인사야 말이야. 간다 닝마 거기 사자 견데 저는 참으로다兄弟的 집을 찾아야 돼. 달람이 하고 싶어 있나?兄弟 상호 집을 들어가. 그래서 다 잡아디 나 그도네 에노 사모한테 님마사지 내용도가. 쟤네다 먼저 님말이야 아니 rinju kama ta jiri jurago ta rinju kama ene niju dharma ene shindu so tanang shere ta di tanang chogore ta tanang chogodi 고상 가봐 전부 리아다 tanang manguji 용되기도 와 긴뒤 자절래 고로 숨쉬 그도도 안에 tanang 시 용되기도 와 긴뒤 두고 차샤네 된대기다 학회라이 시시 당나들이 용되기 하래. 얘는 수남 자소 용되기도 와. 저한테 아니 군도 고고말래 예배소시도 패지디 지 가서 남자나리 도서 열라 뒤 예배소시도. 자자가 다 야왕의 명예배식을 딘데게 학과하에 다나서 편에 매버도 나래. 군지 주시면 돼. 개미도다. 미두디 양에 좀 제세. 군지 주시면 다나도 지에 미두디 이네 깨다 치슈인 쓰기야. 진짜 어디 야가반데 마 충분히.
So, with regard to sacred mantrayana, what is present is the difference. It makes distinction between the coarse and subtle mind and subtle body and so forth, and which is not something which is done in sutrayana, but only in tantrayana, and within tantra, particularly the highest yoga tantra. And then, and on the basis of this subtle mind and body, then the subtlest body and mind, then there are the highest yoga tantra also gives explanation of the four Buddha bodies, how we attain the four Buddha bodies, and all the texts that we study in Tibetan Buddhist monastic institutions, written by the 17 Nalanda masters. Of course, there is no difference between the Sarma and Nyingma traditions, the old and the new and old translation schools that we actually talk about within the context of Tibetan Buddhism. But when it comes to, particularly in it comes to the tantric teachings, then the teachings, the tantric teachings that were translated before in the beginning, 8th century and so forth, they were considered and are considered as the Nyingma or the old translation school, and then within which there is the distant lineage of the Kama, and then the close near lineage of the Dharma, and then the profound visionary lineage of the visionary and the pure visionary teachings of the profound pure visionary teachings. And then out of these three within the Nyingma tradition, the particular initiation that we are going to do comes within the pure visionary circle of teachings. And the particular visionary teaching that we are going to deal with here is with this medicine Buddha initiation had come to the fifth Dalai Lama. So fifth Dalai Lama had many visions of deities and gurus and so forth. And then the second Dalai Lama also seems to, the Genrin Gyatso seems to have had many visions of deities and lamas, even when he was 3 or 4 years old. So since then, and then the third Dalai Lama and the 13th Dalai Lama also seems to have had many many visions. But then of all the Dalai Lamas until now, it is only the 14th Dalai Lama, although despite bearing the name Dalai Lama, it is only the 14th Dalai Lama who has no vision at all. But then I usually jokingly say that although I have no visions of deity and so forth, but then I am, of all the 14 Dalai Lamas, I am the most popular one. And so this particular initiation of medicine Buddha comes from the visionary teachings of the fifth Dalai Lama.
저 윤로래 다 되게 간다 릭다 지기 애네 간다 타니 로베 송죽스르인데 다 성수로지고 직다 rinjekyun sanjik salyan do dengedi ene songju kato ne yongdegi yari ba so lobe songju kato ne da yongdegi yari so dine yime indi zane anda de ene nga ji chinlo chebe kato le tamebe nangshin sani ene 동이 dobe suno har shao dine jigi gopsu babata lamae 동이 고봉은 좀 더네 딱 그저 두두 지금 동반이 다 싸움 다니 근데 동이 dobe suno 디 아니 멜라리아 샤데바치 네이드상다 자 진짜 인도 차란즈 다안데 라마디 괴배권에 아니 디 사제 멜라 진짜 지리여 사바시 성수 로지베다 멜라 진짜 지리여 사바시체 아니 디 중에다 친로셔야인다
And so, and Sacred Mantrayana, we talk about the subtle, the one taste of the body, speech, and mind when you stage Buddhahood. But then in the lower Tantra sets, there's no distinction between coarse and subtle mind as such, but which is done in the highest Yoga Tantra. Despite that, in the lower Tantras, what you do visualize is yourself as deities, and so you generate yourself into a deity. So when you do this generation of yourself as a deity, then how you do it is first you meditate on emptiness and dissolve everything into emptiness, and with the mind, the wisdom of emptiness, the apprehended object of the wisdom of emptiness arises in the form of a deity. And so that's how you generate yourself into a deity in the deity yoga practice, tantric practice, even the lower tantras. And although, of course, when you visualize yourself as a deity, arising into a deity from within this meditation on emptiness, the mind wisdom of emptiness, at this stage, of course, although there is this imagination or the visualization of yourself as a deity, but then you are not an actual deity as such. And this happens at this stage in imagination and visualization. And but then when you push further and further in this practice of deity yoga, then of course in the highest yoga tantra, you go through the stages of development of body isolation, physical isolation, and then mental isolation and so forth. And when you reach that of illusory body, the state of illusory body, then actually you are able to reach or experience the one taste of body, speech, and mind. Which is to say that you also this happens when you attain what is known as the Trini level reunion. That this one taste of body, speech, and mind happens, and so then therefore during this blessing that you are going to receive of the medicine Buddha, of course even at this stage, in order to reach that kind of the one taste of body, speech, and mind, and at the Trini level union, you have to practice the path from now on. And then therefore when you receive the blessings, what you do is you dissolve the ordinary perception and conception of yourself, and then you arise into a deity. And so even with regard to me as the Lama who is giving you the blessings, I try my best to visualize myself as the deity, and which has these three: body, speech, and mind in one taste. And so you should imagine me as the Buddha, medicine Buddha, who has this the body, speech, and mind as one taste, and receive the blessings. So this is a mandala offering requesting the blessings from the Guru. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru and four continents and sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha filled and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land.
최선의 발전 내봐서 우리 병원 중으로 소원을 삼고 천진으로 진지로 혹시 삼고 천진으로 진지 너래다 달로만 이제 달에 온고 진지로 써서 다 간다 매래 진로 나로나 sen다 섬네 소화돼 버려.
So think that you have think of making your fervent prayer and request to the Guru to give the blessing of medicine.
나서 내가 말해서 뭐든지 가서한테 저 증해지기 뒤주. 뒤주 상담 말다. 저 증해 걸을 레베. 냐라 매래잖아. 내가 라마 걸을 내가 차려 그랬어. 이랬어 레베.
And so, after receiving this blessing of the Medicine Buddha, Vaishajya Guru, Medicine Buddha, don't think that all your sicknesses and diseases will go away. This is not be the case. Yesterday, I had an interview, and the interviewer asked, will this be the case? And will people be cured of all their diseases? I said, first of all, the Lama himself who's going to give it is sick. And so, you should not think. So, of course, I have done the retreat of Medicine Buddha and also do this prayer, but I still become sick. But then... So if you ask if there, in that case, is there no reason why the Medicine Buddha initiation is given? Of course, there is a purpose for that. If you having received the initiation, then if you do retreat and recite the mantra of Medicine Buddha, it can help to avert sicknesses and also to recover from sicknesses quickly.
공들 잡심 자세하겠다 잠도다 다한테 데이터 디체션 sometimes 다 주주 치들라.
So it says in the ritual to do the practice of refuge and bodhicitta. So let's read the two verses from Bodhisattva Charyavatara on page 22 and page 23. Verse number 23 and 24. So please kneel on your right knee, those who are on the floor. Just as the previous Sugatas gave birth to. So let's repeat it.
전주스벨러버로 다른 신나바다 다장로라 편도도 전주스는 끼지 전주스벨러버로 무엇인도 라버기스 전주도 셈 기기인 세네 되게 말씀 있게 차도와 다디 양자식 시험을 아니 전주스벨러버로 무엇인도 라버기스 되게다 전주스벨러버 친루 다 냠내차 되게 다 라린 계긴 사지 다 되게 라린 계야 돼 지 기회도 전에 라린 계 야 지금 뭐 기회 그도 라린 마게 하면 배치 다 소소 소는 신치기다 네 자충부지 지체 당에 라린 계 안에 탐제샤를 사다 이제 되게 신주스도 또 봤어요.
And so we'll recite these two verses, verse number 23 and 24 on page 22 and 23, three times. And with regard to these verses, you say, it says, just as the previous Sugatas gave birth to awakening mind, and just as they have successively dwelt in the Bodhisattva practices, likewise, for the sake of all that lives, I give birth to an awakening mind. So this is the aspiring bodhicitta, which we have done earlier, which we have generated earlier. And then next two lines say that you are going to practice the bodhisattva practices and engage in the bodhisattva practices, including the six perfections. And then what you have to feel is that you will continue to practice and do the bodhisattva practices, whether you are happy or unhappy, and not when you are happy and not doing so when you are unhappy.
아니 센데 심지 미년베교 시 이모여 되네 침을 심지 미년베교 아니 나부 주시방 갈비 주시냐서 람바스 다 디디 사드는데 셈 상부체 술레 베게 네바 마치야 다데 싸웠디레 아니 진실로 동바송디 저동 접게 이제 시루 다 뒤에 싸워도 나가르샤 소수다 자청부지야 데 디지니 아니 샹을 베게 남에 동야로 샹을 베게 지금 다 샹디 캐도 사서 다 뒷마치를 채채 가다 랑도 이주 동야도 자와래 자 드리인도 다 럽지기 몽구샤요 데 드닝부디 다 뒤단에 송어지 네 샹을야 판번 버식도 삼버지 샹은 내가 나야 메시 삼버지 다디 쪼르 진수를 럽지 쪼드 들으셔
And so with regard to the practice, having taken the Bodhisattva vows, then what you actually engage in is not to cause decline to the Bodhisattva vows, and in this life and in the next lives, by avoiding the four black dharmas, black practices, and cultivating the four white practices. And the essence of Bodhisattva vows is to work for the sentient beings, and to think of benefiting others and not being carried away by selfish motive at all. Although there are those of the 18 root downfalls and the 46 secondary transgressions within the Bodhisattva vows, but the essence is to think of benefiting other sentient beings alone and not to cause any harm to them at all. So this has to be your pledge. And so with this, please repeat. Just as the previous Sugatas gave birth to an awakening mind, and just as they successively dwelled in the Bodhisattva practices, likewise for the sake of all that lives do I give birth to an awakening mind, and likewise shall I too successively follow the practices. Just as the previous Sugatas gave birth to an awakening mind, and just as they successively dwelled in the Bodhisattva practices, likewise for the sake of all that lives do I give birth to an awakening mind, and likewise shall I too successively follow the practices. Just as the previous Sugatas gave birth to an awakening mind, and just as they successively dwelt in the Bodhisattva practices, likewise for the sake of all that lives do I give birth to an awakening mind, and likewise shall I too successively follow the practices. Please sit down. And continue reading the rest of the third chapter. In order to further increase it from now on, those with discernment who have lucidly seized an awakening mind in this way should highly praise it in the following manner. Today my life has borne fruit, having well obtained this human existence. I've been born in the family of Buddha, and now am one of Buddha's children. Thus, whatever actions I do from now on must be in accord with the family. Never shall I disgrace or pollute this noble and unsullied race. Just like a blind man discovering a jewel in a heap of rubbish, likewise, by some coincidence, an awakening mind has been born within me. It is the supreme ambrosia that overcomes the sovereign of death. It is an inexhaustible treasure that eliminates all poverty in the world. It is the supreme medicine that quells the world's disease. It is the tree that shelters all beings wandering and tired on the path of conditioned existence. It is the universal bridge that leads to freedom from unhappy states of birth. It is the dawning moon of the mind that dispels the torments of disturbing conceptions. It is the great sun that finally removes the misty ignorance of the world. It is the quintessential butter from the churning of the milk of Dharma for all those guests traveling on the path of conditioned existence who wish to experience the bounties of happiness. This will satisfy them with joy and actually place them in supreme bliss. Today, in the presence of all the protectors, I invite the world to be guests at a festival of temporary and ultimate delight. May gods, demigods, and all be joyful.
Yeah.
So now, next, so those of you who have received full-fledged initiations before, you may now visualize transforming yourself into medicine Buddha. But those of you who have not received any initiation before, full-fledged initiation, not just Jianangs or permanent initiation, but for you, you have to visualize medicine Buddha on your crown, sitting on your crown. So
당연히 하기벌이야 되게 넣어야 돼. 돈이 공부를 와. 당연히 장사물로 상을 스톤다. 왜 장소 Russians 러비나 Russians 하지. 나 Russians 하지. 나도 거도 상을 스톤다.
So in order to generate yourself into a deity, you have to first of all meditate on emptiness, as I explained earlier. And so with regard to meditation on emptiness, of course you think of yourself as Russian. So just check where this Russian is. So you think of yourself as Russian or whatever country, but the body is not you. Your body is not you. So then you have to check whether this I is within the mind or consciousness or not. So the I cannot be the sensory consciousnesses, the five senses, sensory consciousness, because if it were the case, then you would have to say that you do not exist when you are deeply asleep. Then you have to think about, consider whether the mental consciousness is I. But then when you faint, when you become unconscious, there is no mental consciousness. So then, because there is no mental consciousness, you would have to say, I wasn't there. But that's not the case. You will not be able to say, I wasn't, I didn't exist. And then if you ask whether the subtle mind at the time of death, the subtle clear light at that stage, is the mind or not. So we can talk about the innate clear light nature of clear light mind being in dormant state or in a manifest state, but then you will not talk about I as being dormant or manifest as such. You will not make this distinction in the I.
당연히 지하서 나야 통과할 봐. 이거 따라하면 더 쓰거든. 자 따라하면 통과를. 뭐는 전 따라하면 류 통과를 못 하. 따라하면 가도.
So you think that when you look at me, you see the Dalai Lama, but then actually what you see is my body and not the Dalai Lama.
따라하면 샘진 자 통과를 봐.
You will not see the Dalai Lama's mind.
이내 따라하면 깨시 넘주 단단한 터네 따라하면 샘진이 저다 삼 처바도 해야지.
But you may be able to judge that the Dalai Lama is thinking such and such from his expressions or his what he says. You may be able to infer the thoughts that go on in the Dalai Lama.
따라하면
So if you ask the body, speech and the mind of the Dalai Lama, who actually possesses this body, speech and mind of the Dalai Lama, of course you'll say the Dalai Lama owns it, but then where is the Dalai Lama?
네, 구승투스 여러보다 다 구승투스 수일에서는 사실 좀 된데 그래서 어려워. 다 좀 된데 그래서는 잡도.
Of course, you can also talk about the body, speech, and the mind of the Buddha being the Buddha possessing his body, speech, and mind. But then, regarding the Buddha himself, what he is, of course, you will not be able to find him either.
남든 기매 강대 지도부 예지 natural 밴디 예 미니스 저 측승돼. 쟤는 가다 나의 류 나의 샘샤로 아니 풍부도 찍다 풍부도 다 돼서로 두선지 자요 보이나 현은 이해하면 되지.
And so in Chandrakirti's Madhyamaka Avatara, it goes through the sevenfold reasoning and says when you check something through these sevenfold reasonings, then what the yogi finds is that the person does not exist. But then, if you ask whether the yogi does not exist, does or does not exist, of course, he does exist because there he has his activities and so forth.
여버진 또 댄댄데 다 여여 다주래. 그 다들 전에 많이 보고도 다 자원에 요 말을 쓰려나? 엔다 가장 대루도. 다들 전에 이게 요 말이 돼 이네 매번 말을 쓴다. 로고로. 다오는 컨디션으로는 민국왕기 예버치 차이도. 그래서 다 민국왕기 여 쌈치. 여 쌈사 쌈르되기 민국왕기 예버면 또 전쟁 뭐는 매버도 샤이도. 그래서 이제 인도산에 다 전쟁 뭐는 주베 동어래도. 대전시 동어서 시거다. 뭐니 주베 동어서도.
And so the person exists, but then if you were to search for the person within the psychophysical aggregates, you will not be able to find anything that you can point to as the person as such. And in that case, when you say, if you say when doing such analysis, when the person is found, of course you will not still say that the person does not exist as such, but then the person does exist. But the way he exists or she exists is merely by way of merely by nominally, and not, which means that the person does not exist objectively. So the emptiness of having any kind of independent objective existence is what we come to the conclusion when we say the person does exist, but not in the way it appears.
차단 걸로 해야 돼. 나를 이동와 낭체 들차. 나를 이동 명원아 당체. 다 들이 나를 생각하고 봐봐 자주다나 니야메 되시도 봐. 자다 차단 계류산에 데 나를 이동을 했어. 나를 팬다고 스르브는 나한테 그리스도 와. 숙청부터 와. 딱고 봐봐 가sam다는 나한테 매들시 차요. 저다 되는데 나 민두 삼버시 나 나와는 시 민두 삼버 잔댕에 로디기 나를 이동하다 나를 이동하면서 콜라 슉 짜요.
And so when you become attached or angry at others, what happens is you actually become attached to someone because that person or that thing seems attractive, appears attractive to you, pleasing to you, and therefore become attached to them. On the other hand, because something or someone you feel aversion to them, therefore you feel your anger or hatred towards them. But then, having developed these emotions, when you think about so in relation to yourself you become attached or angry, but then when you think about this I to whom someone becomes attractive or aversion, when you try to think about it, you will not be able to find it. So then, and in this case, what appears as being you, is not the way you are, and therefore, what this means is that you do not have any independent objective existence. So meditate on that you are devoid of any objective existence, that you do not exist the way you appear to yourself.
어머 숨바와셔도 사와다 뭐 숨바와셔도 한 동반이 도죠. 다 된지
Everything becomes
나 민두
empty.
삼네 나 나와는 시 민두 삼네 잔댕에게 로티니 아니
So this mind which is absorbed in emptiness,
대 용수 주발래 아니 매너를 계속 매너를 줄수 삼아지.
so this mind which is absorbed in emptiness, thinking that I do not exist the way I appear to me, now imagine that it transforms into a home syllable, and that home syllable in turns transforming into yourself as medicine Buddha.
마법스도 말배 말배 제가 매래 년저 뒤에 속부 매래 제제 년저 마법스도
And so the medicine Buddha painting in the hall on the left side has very red ears, and so it seems this medicine Buddha is Mongolian medicine Buddha because of this red ear. Ulan Bator and Ulan, the name Ulan refers to redness.
어디야 되자 다 왕톱 용어 뒤뒤다 소소소이니 매라지를 줄수 삼바체 이니 왕만 톱을 랑게 고역강이야 이니 매라지를 줄수 삼바체야.
So those of you, as explained earlier, those of you who have received full-fledged initiations, now visualize yourself as medicine Buddha, and those who have not received full-fledged initiations before, visualize or imagine medicine Buddha sitting on your crown. So next is showering of the blessings. So imagine that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas from the natural abodes are invoked, and then they come forth in the form of medicine Buddha and dissolves into you, thereby blessing you.
Oh yeah, that looks it. I didn't call this one. Chin up. 다다시 맹제도 깨발라 진 업디지 다 되네 부모 다 분배 나려야 이게 되게 주베 그돌이야 뒤지 말아 깨디어 되나야 다 되네 전적이 분배 난게 아니 분배 나려야 말아 이게다가 되게 차고 풍시 다 아니 차 예배 어루에 동분남쇼 차 연배 풍시 나래 아니 매네 소여다 봤다 텔레마 주지 균쇼니 견한다마 주지 추용마 류탐제파 주 아니 류탐제 강 아니 토미네 사베 디두타 아니 지금 내리도 제대 봐 타소 사바치야
So in the vase that is held in the hands of the monk, the nectar is medicine Buddha is visualized and generated, and so with this vase, when you should imagine that you receive the blessings, and thereby with this blessing, you're purified of your negativities.
추점이야 여러 말에 알레 시다다 바잠지는 하는지는 저도 하여는 나와야지 나 저요 아마 저한테는 거 이거 저 사마이시는 넘방어도 배가 알아서 좀 배가 넘방어도 배가 넘방어도 배가 배가 넘방어도 배가 넘방어도 배가 넘방어도 배가 알아서 배가 숨은 거 돼서 다 다간지기도 20 분주고 말다 대다라 취왕구에 아니 취를 야를 넣어래 랑기 지오로 아니 르다 다시 나타에 우게 누구도 르다 미집에 우게샤 미집에 우게
So with this blessing that you have received, the water, the nectar flows into you and then fills up your body and overflows on your crown, which transforms into Akshobhya. So you're crowned with Akshobhya as the lord of the lineage.
매래고 깔고 빠도 매버 중대 엔로메 민즘을 팀제 아니 꾸이고는 꾸이신로 토소 사바치야
And then imagine that from the mid-eyebrow of Medicine Buddha, rays of light come forth, and this purifies your negativities of your body, and you receive the blessing of the body of Medicine Buddha.
벤주 야데 꾸이 진지로 엄선 나방원 백에서 그러면서 저도 백에서 쓰는 거 같아서 가요 알비케서 옴 되네 숭아 담멜레 숭아디 짐버 뚝네 아니 야 멜레 짐버네 아니 숭아 잉주서 빠도 주디 변하러 왔는데 짐버를 템데 나 치지로서 냐바나쇼
And then imagine that the mantra of the Medicine Buddha is touched on your on your throat, and then with that receive the blessing. Think of receiving the blessing of the speech of Medicine Buddha.
So yeah, that in the hungi. Any dunji mele tuge hungle 야 이게 홍이 뭐뭐 투기 사변 라다 홍이 뭐뭐 빠도 버춘데 로마는 닝걸마 팀체 Any yi chi lo so nya ba na.
And so from the home syllable, which is the seed syllable of medicine Buddha, the heart of representing the heart of medicine Buddha, think that rays of light come forth and it dissolves into your heart, thereby blessing your heart with the blessing of the mind of medicine Buddha.
아니 대원네 매래 대원네 아니 왜스 흉시 단디샤 다 흉시 신nem 다 왜도 흉시 되게 나발로 중네 다 왜서 서브 나발로 중데 로메 대화 팀데 아니 연댕 그치로 토소 사만 나셔.
And so with the next one is the arms bow, and when it is imagine that it's touched on your navel, and then imagine that the blessings in the form of rays of light comes forth from, that you are blessed with the enlightened qualities of the medicine Buddha.
Guna ebikiza so. 다데네 메레 상네네 아니 야 디 어루르 소총 아니 다가는 지금 왜 정부 빠도 중디 라면 상네로 마 팀데 야 진지로서 사바체.
And then imagine that from the secret place. Imagine that rays of light comes forth from the secret place of medicine Buddha and dissolves into the secret place of yourself, and thereby think of receiving the blessings of the enlightened activities of the enlightened medicine Buddha.
어야. 디 숭아디 때요메. 숭아디 줄이 얼마? 자 중에 숭아 말 봐. 쉬고 뭐 장도 나디 그게 가서 쉬고 때 쉬고 봐. 쉬고 때 쉬고 다. 전디시야.
So please repeat this mantra of medicine Buddha, which will be distributed later.
Lama Mela said about that, Dungi Mela said about Tugane, Nandi Chungde, Kera Lama Mela Sawa Ineri, Kesi Mela Sam Eva Ine, Kada Nigalama, Nandi Didama, Timje, Chinjilo Sabachia, and Sachi Tuchi, and Jendusha.
And so, whether you have visualized yourself as the medicine Buddha, or whether you have, or you have visualized the medicine Buddha on your crown, imagine that this mantra, chains of this mantra of medicine Buddha, comes from the master's heart as well as the heart of the medicine Buddha in the altar generated, front generated medicine Buddha, comes forth and dissolves, goes down into your heart.
Om Namo Bhagavate.
Om Namo Bhagavate.
Bekhanse.
Bekhanse.
Guru Binduya.
Guru Bendoya.
Tawaranzaya.
Tawaranzaya.
Tatagataya.
Tathagata.
Arahate.
Arahate.
Samyasam.
Samyasam.
Buddhaya.
Buddhaya.
Deyatha.
Deyatha.
Om Bekhanse.
Om Bekhanse.
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 Maha Bekhanse.
Maha Bekhanse.
Raja Samungate Swaha.
Raja Samungate Swaha.
Tataya Tibishe. What a thing is ye, Melejana Simbri.
So with this, we have completed the permission to practice commission initiation of the medicine Buddha.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's sama.
Now, It's lunchtime.
차 사마